you're an SDR without a clear daily schedule, you are definitely leaving meetings and commission on the table. I've coached hundreds of SDRs and led business development teams at top tech companies. And in this video, I'm going to show you a proven daily structure that gamifies the SDR job. It removes guesswork and it helps you operate essentially on autopilot. So we'll cover the exact time blocks that top performers use to hit quota, the behind the scenes prep that goes into it and makes it all work, and then how to stay consistent with it all, even when your calendar gets slammed. So let's get right into it. A lot going on the screen here, a lot of colors. We'll break it down. Every day is supposed to look just about the same, and it's actually really simple. So what you're looking at here is a standard 8 to 5 calendar, and what I would define as an ideal calendar. Like if I could draw my week up and have no interruptions and be able to do all the activities I wanted to at precisely the exact times I wanted to, this is how I would draw up my week to maximize productivity. Now, I understand that that's usually not possible. Internal meetings come up. You got to sync with your AEs. Hopefully you set some meetings so it disrupts some of the time blocks you had prepared, but it's still important to map out the activities that you want to do at what times of the day, understand why you're doing them at those times of the day, how much you're aiming to get done, etc. Because even if you accomplish 70 to 80% of what you were aiming to do and you do that consistently, that's still a really good outcome. So we're going to start the day at 8 a.m. I'm not going to preach at you about a morning routine, but if you want to start a Ashton Hall style wake up at 4 a.m., be my guest. But me, I'm rolling in at 8 a.m. And instead of looking at it as Monday, for example, and looking at all these different colors, look at how each time block is similar each day. So from 8 to 9:30, I'm going to be sending emails. We'll go into what Group A and Group B means in a second. But the reason I choose that is because the best times of day statistically to prospect where people either both answer the phone or respond to emails more are early in the morning before they're in meetings, and then the end of day when they're often done with meetings and wrapping up the day. I choose to email in the morning because look, if you like to cold call in the morning, go for it. You can change around these blocks. This is not me saying you have to follow this to a T. It's just important to have a repeatable structure. I have always had a tough time getting going on cold calls at 8 a.m. and it is still a good time to email. So I choose to make 8 to 9:30 my email block every single day. When I show up, I have my lists ready to go. We'll talk about that in a second. Group A list, Group B list, so that I know what I'm doing. I have my list built. I have the associated templates built, and I use that hour and a half to send emails every day. Then we'll be realistic here. Like, look, you can keep powering through, but before I start making cold calls, I need to take a break generally and get myself in the mood. I got to drink another coffee, review the script I'm going to be using, and that is when we are going to use 10 a.m. to about 12 p.m. And look, if you're crushing it, I just like to keep going through lunch, but you do you. I like to get my big prospecting activities done in the beginning of the day when I have energy before my brain just gets, melted throughout the day. So I like to do emails early morning and then calls late morning. And if you want to be strategic about it, you can cold call people on lists where in their time zone, it's early morning. So you do get that early morning high answer rate effect. So for me, I lived on the East Coast and still do in the United States. So I would call a lot of Mountain Time or Pacific Time or even Central Time. People where it was 9:30 a.m. or earlier is who I would try and call during this time block. You don't need to overthink it, but it's just a little trick that you can follow. So, but then we're taking lunch. So at this point, each day, and Friday's the only day that looks a little different. We'll touch on that in a second. But each day has been an hour and a half of emails, and you can get out, and I'm going to show you how by coiling the spring, about 100. You can do 80 to 100 emails, if not more, in each of these time blocks if you have the list ready to go in the email templates. Again, I'm going to show you how. And then same thing with the cold calls. You have your list ready to go, the scripts ready to go as well, so you're not figuring out who you're going to cold call. Then we're going to take lunch. I left 90 minutes here because that's how we roll. If your manager has a problem with that, tell them to come talk to me, but I need a little bit of extra time at lunch, especially if I've kept ripping dials through the first part of lunch, if I was on a hot streak. Then we get to the part of the day that I call coiling the spring or just taking care of miscellaneous activities. So we've done the big heavy items. We've done a lot of emails. We've done a lot of cold calls up to this point. This is the part of the day where people are generally busiest too. They're in meetings, so they're not answering the phone at as high of a rate, or they're not responding to emails. So I prefer to use this time to plan out my next day. Who am I going to be reaching out to? What messaging? I could be doing more strategic prospecting. So rather than just high volume emails and high volume cold calls, I'll use this time of day to pick specific target accounts and create even more targeted messaging or strategic messaging for them, reach out to strategic prospects. Maybe my AE had told me, if you book a meeting with this account or with this person, it's almost definitely going to be an opportunity. Or you just have some other CRM cleanup you got to do, but this is generally the time of day I like to do that. Then at the end of the day, again, I like to get myself ready to cold call, and you can honestly extend this to 5:30 if you want, but we'll call it at 5 for the purposes of this video. You can get people who are wrapping up their day. Maybe they're leaving a little early, they're getting into their car, they're in a little bit of a better mood, they're not busy, and answer rates are higher at this part of the day too. And when I was in the East Coast, I used this time to call my East Coast accounts. So before getting into the Group A, Group B stuff yet, it is email in the morning, call in the late morning until lunch, use the middle of the day strategically to take care of items, do strategic prospecting or plan the next day, and then wrap up the day with cold calls. And then here I put LinkedIn optional. People ask me a lot, how do you leverage LinkedIn and Sales Navigator? The reason I don't talk about it in depth that much is because I never made it a main part of my strategy, because I've always been able to get more than enough results just by focusing on email and cold calls. So this is the time of day, and I say it's optional, that I would send LinkedIn messages. So I don't know, I'd be watching TV or watching the Celtics game or something, and in between commercials, I would basically just fire out some LinkedIn messages. I didn't put too much weight into it, didn't really care that much. I was just trying to take basically my email templates, write a similar message, and just shoot it over to people on LinkedIn. And I could usually pick off a few meetings per month just by doing this, but I didn't take it seriously. I didn't do it every day. It's not mandatory, but I like to use this block for LinkedIn whenever I did, and not during the day, because what I found is you can send LinkedIn messages in off hours and people are generally cool with it and people can generally reply to it. But for example, if you were emailing during this time and you're sending broad volume-based prospecting emails, people aren't going to respond to that, and they'll just get annoyed a lot of times if you're sending an email to them at 8:30 p.m. their time. But LinkedIn is fine. So that is how I've leveraged LinkedIn. I'm sure there's a better strategy for it, but I just choose to double down on the areas that have always worked for me, which is cold calling and cold emailing. And then I kind of use this time to just casually try and pick off some LinkedIn messages. But now, what do I mean by Group A and Group B? So this is how you can stay on top of a very large list of leads and prospects and send a lot of high quality messages at scale. So Group A is going to be a persona, a job title. It could be a group of different job titles and personas that you go after, but I'm going to show you a couple examples. Let's say you sold financial management software. One common title in the financial management space are controllers. So Group A, I could make a list of 100 controllers that work in my territory in the retail industry specifically, create an email template that's targeted for controllers that work in retail, and send the same email to all of them and be pretty confident that it's going to be a high quality message just by changing their name and the name of the company and nothing else about the email template. Then doing the same thing for Group B. So choosing a different title in a different industry and also having call scripts prepared for each of those titles. I'm going to go into this in a second. But then Wednesday morning when we wake up, we're going to send our first follow-up to the people we emailed on Monday. It's usually just a copy and paste follow-up. I'll show you examples of the follow-ups I use. And then on Thursday, we do the same thing. Call Group B. So you can, email Group B. So you can see it how it's an every other day. I call it an A-B cadence. So Group A is getting an email on Monday, and then I'm calling them in my 2 blocks on Tuesday. They're getting an email follow-up from me Wednesday, call Thursday, email Friday, and then it's the opposite for a Group B. I'm calling them Monday, emailing them Tuesday, calling them Wednesday, emailing them Thursday. It's an easy to implement yet very effective cadence at scale. Where I disagree and where a lot of sales enablement leads SDRs astray is they create these cadences that look really good on paper. They're 15 touch point cadences where it's call day 1, LinkedIn request day 2, email day 3, call with a voicemail day 4. But it's like, how do you scale that? You can't. So for broad, high volume prospecting where you're trying to be high quality at scale, this is the easiest way I've found to do it. Is it's just an every other day cadence. You're emailing one group on Monday, the other group on Tuesday, and you're calling on the days they're not getting an email. And it's really easy to just wake up, have the templates ready. You know exactly who you're emailing. You've done the heavy upfront lifting to make it a targeted template. And you can get 100 out the door in 60 to 90 minutes and get a lot of replies in the process. So I want to quickly move over and show you examples of how you can coil the spring so that you can really see how easy it is to implement all of this at scale. So how are we supposed to just sit down Monday morning and have scripts and templates ready to go and have the ability to just fire out 100 emails in 60 to 90 minutes? Like, what are you talking about? What I'm talking about is coiling the spring. It's everything you do before you start sending emails or start making cold calls. So how I define coiling the spring is essentially front loading all of your prep work. So everything that goes into emailing and cold calling, building out your list. Who am I going to target today? So building out your lists, writing tailored emails and scripts for those lists so that when it's time to actually execute in terms of just making emails and making dials, you can just focus on purely high quality outreach without friction, hesitation, or wasted time. You can sit down and have your targeted template for Group A and Group B because you took the upfront work to do it. It takes some upfront lifting. I compare it to meal prep for sales reps. It's often efficient to just Sunday, if you're following a workout routine, just buy all your food, put it all up in the right quantities in your fridge so that you can just focus on working out and eating. It's the same thing in sales. So how to get started with this, you want to determine your top ICPs and your buying triggers. So the departments you go after, the top job titles, industries they work in, geographies, whatever those triggers are, and then strategically create lists with one or more of those buying triggers. So a job title like a CFO in financial services, and then create your call scripts and your templates that all have a very similar structure. You're just slightly tweaking them to be targeted for those specific lists. This is important because otherwise you have to do this stuff on a daily basis and it causes you a lot of friction, it slows you down, and it kills your productivity. So now you wake up, once you've done this and you've coiled the spring, you know what to do each day rather than having to come up with what to do. That is a game changer. So you can set the foundation by doing this up front for weeks or even months at a time, because it's not like lists go bad. Generally, once you make them, they're still useful and you can recycle them over and over again throughout the year. And if you do, that's again, meal prep for sales reps. So the only capabilities you need to do this, you might be thinking, how do I get all these leads into lists? You break it down. There's so many different tools out there, but all you need is an accurate enough, there's no silver bullet, B2B contact database. So you need a database to be able to go into. You need to be able to filter leads by desired criteria. So you want to be able to filter by a certain title or a certain industry or geography or all three and have that big database filter down to your desired criteria. And then you need to be able to click a button and add them all to a list and contact them one by one via the phone or email. That's all you need. And now I want to show you, once these lists are made, how you can start creating email templates and call scripts in advance so that when you sit down, and I'm going to take us back to the schedule in a minute, you can just implement this. So this isn't going to be an in-depth email or cold call script video. I'll link to a video where I go way more in depth on all of this. But essentially, in this case, let's say I'm working at a company called Capital Site and we sell financial applications. If I wanted to target one of my main ICPs, controllers that work in retail, here is how I would take this is how a lot of my email templates look, but you can see here what I changed to make it targeted for this specific title in this specific industry. So in this case, my team works with retail organizations on priorities related to inventory cost control, multi-location financial visibility, and accelerating monthly close cycles. Specifically partner to centralize reporting across store locations, reduce manual reconciliation efforts, and improve forecasting accuracy around seasonal demand. So that's the email template. Cold call script. Again, I have videos where I break this down more in depth, value statement framework, but I essentially create a cold call script that follows the same talk track except for controllers. So you see the same things: inventory cost control, multi-location financial visibility, accelerating month-end close cycles. So now when I sit down, I have those time blocks ready to go, and I have scripts and templates that are targeted for controllers in retail, and I can be very confident that the messaging I'm delivering is going to be valuable and relevant to them without needing to do in between research, in between calls or emails or anything like that. Another quick example, let's say I chose for Group B on Tuesday, the different day, a different title: VPs of Financial Planning and Analysis in the life science space. Maybe I have one AE that supports retail, and I have another AE that supports life science. This is how you can use the same thing. So here's what a call script would look like. In this case, I'm going to use examples like clinical trial planning, budget forecasting and commercialization, unify scattered data from clinical trials and accelerate the portfolio planning process. It's the same structure. I've just tweaked it to be targeted to a VP of FP&A and life science. And here's what that same email template can look like. Again, you can pause, you can go back. They visually look the same: 3 bodies, structure, who you are, why you're reaching out, what you want. But now I'm talking about working on priorities related to clinical trial planning, budget forecasting, commercialization, yada, yada, yada. So this is how you can build. Is you can do a lot more than just 2 personas. You can do this for just about all of your top job titles and all of your top industries. You can have lists built out as far as the eye can see, your templates, your scripts ready to go. Because now when we jump back into the schedule, you're going to see how easy this is to implement. And just one last thing too, because on the schedule, there's follow-ups. These are some examples of follow-ups I use. Again, in the video, I'll link in the description. I go way more in depth on all of this, but you can see they're all copy and pastable so that it's easy on Wednesday to go back to that Monday list of controllers you contacted and send follow-up 1 to all of them. Follow-up 2 is the same thing on Friday, follow-up 3, etc. So back to the schedule. Hopefully this is making more sense, each block now, and what I mean by these groups and how you can send high quality messaging at scale. So Monday morning, we've already decided in advance that we're going to be targeting controllers in retail. I have my list of 100 people ready to go. I have that template ready to go. You can get 80, 100 plus out the door if you're just changing their name. We're not even talking about automation here. You can get them out the door. Then we have that call script ready for the VPs of FP&A in life science ready to go for this block and this block. And then on Tuesday morning, we wake up and we're going to send our VP of FP&A Group B email template to the group we called yesterday. And we're going to call the group we emailed yesterday. On Wednesday morning, the first thing you're going to do is go into your sent box, scroll down to all of the first email of all of the ones you sent on Monday, take follow-up 1, copy and paste, and go one by one and reply to them all. Thursday morning, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go into your sent box on Tuesday, scroll to the bottom, copy and paste follow-up 1 to every single one on Group B. And then Friday morning, when it comes to email, you're going to do the same thing. It's a copy and pastable. They're so easy and quick. Realistically, this doesn't even take an hour and a half. I'm just doing it for the purposes of keeping things simple here for this video. But you can send follow-ups to both A and B. So this is a different topic, but I like to hit, in terms of email, I like to hit people early and often. I like to hit them hard in a condensed period of time. I don't like to stretch out my cadences. So this can even extend into next week, but it's something you have ready to go and ready to do the first hour, hour and a half of the day. And if you're doing 80 to 100 Monday, 80 to 100 Tuesday, 80 to 100 follow-ups Wednesday, your emails are going to so far outpace everyone else. It's not even going to make sense. And people are going to ask, how are you doing this? And this is how. It's coiling the spring. And the same thing with calls as well. You have the scripts ready to go. You can pick your times of day, but this is how I always liked to break it out. And it was something easy and consistent that I can implement on autopilot. Now, the question you're probably asking, and I alluded to earlier in the video, is what if things come up? What if it's not a clear, clean schedule and you can just time block every single part of your day? Well, let's get into that, because here's what a typical SDR schedule could look like heading into the week before you've time blocked everything. Here are some types of meetings you probably have on your calendar. You probably have a weekly SDR team stand-up meeting with your team to kick off the week. Maybe you have a few AEs you support and you have weekly syncs with them on Mondays. These are during times you're supposed to be sending cold calls and emails. Maybe you have a manager one-on-one that always seems to get placed at a pretty inconvenient time. Then you got an all-hands call for your company, customer meetings you've hopefully been setting. Maybe you have some product enablement sessions, office hours, team call block. So things come up. Every week's different, but you still want to be following this initial schedule is close to the best of your ability that you can. So let's take a look at this week. You know what a lot of people would do in this situation? They'd say, I have a team meeting in the morning, so I'm not going to do anything until that. I'm just going to use that as the start of my day. Naturally, right as the meeting's going to end, someone keeps the meeting going. And the meeting that was supposed to end at 9:30 ends at 9:43. And then you're like, I only have 17 minutes before my next meeting. And now it's 10 a.m. And instead of sending 100 emails out the door, you sent 0. So you can time block your week. You can start to prepare each week, and this is going to be your email block. I'm not actually going to fill this out, but things come up. And if 80, you know what's better than sending 0 emails, and it's not as good as sending 100, sending 70. You just want to be hitting as close to this ideal calendar as you can. Let me get out of that. And you still, instead of 2 hours to cold call, you have an hour and a half to cold call. Now, you don't want to come in, especially if you're new, and just start requesting to rearrange things. But if you have a good reason and you outlined your AE, like, hey, I really like to use this time to cold call, you can ask them to fill in, like move this AE meeting to the afternoon, because this is kind of your coil to spring block anyway. So I'm cool fitting in my AE meetings with that. You can start to be strategic about how you want to rearrange some of this stuff, but I always tell people protect your time. So I only have one example on here, but ones I've seen in the past that really kill me are there'll be office hours all over the place for different product managers that kind of just have to do it because it's their job. But a lot of reps don't realize they're not mandatory. And look, if you're getting value out of the sessions, go, but you don't feel like you have to attend every meeting that's not mandatory. You want to be making sure you're doing and primarily focusing on activities that are going to get you to your KPIs, your metrics, because guess what? That's how you're graded. That's how you're judged on your performance, and that's what's going to get you promoted and ultimately to the AE role, which is probably your goal and why you're here in the first place. But this is why on certain days, and we didn't even touch on Friday, I leave some time to strategize for the next week. You want to be looking ahead, and you don't have to plan out every hour, but at least get a sense of like, what can I move around? What days are going to be particularly tough, like are particularly crowded? Maybe I have to get extra done on Monday, or a list that I was going to email on Friday. Maybe I bump that up to Thursday, but you want to start getting a sense of this stuff and being a little bit more strategic about it. I'll talk about Friday too, because it's the only day that's a little bit different than everything else. Friday's kind of my free-for-all day. I'll follow up email both lists that I started on Monday and Tuesday, and I'll call both of them. You get really good answer rates on Fridays from my experience, so I actually like to leave extra time to cold call. And, we're going to wrap it up early at 4. Again, your manager has a problem with that. Tell him to come talk to Connor Murray on YouTube. But this is really the process that took the SDR job from feeling like a grind to feeling like a game. And I knew what I was doing every day. And I knew if I just did enough of the right inputs, the right outputs would come. There's obviously ebbs and flows, but in general, this was a consistent, repeatable structure that I could implement. I've seen it work, not just for myself, but many hundreds of reps I've taught it to. And when you're starting out, I just say, focus on going through the motions. Don't feel like you have to get right to 100 emails or 100 calls per day. Scale up over time as the process becomes second nature. Usually when you go through 2-3 weeks of this process, thinking about it very carefully, it starts to click for people. They start to realize, I know exactly what I'm doing when I wake up. I'm at this part of the process with this list. I'm at follow-up 2 on that list, etc. So if you want more hands-on guidance, actually implementing this type of schedule, the email templates, the call scripts, things like that, you could check out the links in the pinned comment below to our course communities, Cold Call Mastery and Email Engine. I'm the live instructor in both. So hope to see you all in there. If you got value, hit the like button, all that, and I will see you all on the next one.